a blocked phone, a taken key card, and threats from $1 billion legal team. This was Cedric Warren's reward for saving his company. Earlier, on the shiny 58th floor of Etherisk Global Tech, CEO Audrey Belmont threw his old bag down and mocked him before foreign partners. Cedric only wanted the Horizon grid system to run safely and protect his daughter Chloe's peaceful life. But Audrey's pride turned his quiet hard work into a shameful reason to fire him. Now, locked out and completely alone, Cedric must find a way to contact old allies to warn them of the disaster. Will the 9:30 a.m. opening bell be Audrey's victory song or the start of her fall? But long before that shameful morning, Cedric Warren's life looked much simpler. His alarm clock read 5:47 a.m. The old device buzzed twice, then stopped. Cedric sat up slowly. His small apartment smelled like cold coffee and dryer sheets. He walked past a stack of unpaid bills on the counter. He did not look at them. In the next room, his daughter Chloe slept under a soft blue blanket. She was 6 years old. A small night light glowed near her bed, shaped like a crescent moon. Cedric pulled the blanket up to her chin. Her breathing was slow and steady. He moved to the kitchen and lit the stove. Jutmel bubled quickly in a dented pot. The smell of brown sugar filled the tiny kitchen. It mixed with the sharp scent of instant coffee. Cedric stirred the pot slowly, tapping the wooden spoon against the rim twice. A radio on the counter played soft morning news at a low volume. He barely listened. His mind was already thinking about Chloe's day ahead. Outside, a garbage truck groaned down the street. Its brakes hissed at the corner. Cedric wore a faded gray jacket. The elbows had gone thin from years of use. His shoes were old leather, cracked at the toe. He had resoled them twice already. Nobody looking at him would guess his past. He once designed data systems for NASA. He held a doctorate in computer science from Stanford University. Few people knew that now. 3 patents carried his name. They sat quietly in a drawer, forgotten by the world. He kept them there on purpose, tucked beneath old socks and spare batteries. Pride, he had learned, could cost a man more than it ever gave back. None of that mattered here. Here, he was just Chloe's father. His wife had died 4 years earlier. A car accident took her on a rainy night. Cedric had been at work that night, deep inside a server room. The guilt never fully left him. Since then, he chose a smaller life. He chose Chloe over ambition every single time. Chloe padded into the kitchen, dragging her blanket behind her. Her hair stuck up in 3 directions. "Daddy, will you be home before dark?" she asked. Her voice was still thick with sleep. Cedric knelt down to her eye level. He held her small hands in his. "I promise," he said. "Home by 5. We'll draw dragons together." Chloe smiled, showing the gap where her front tooth used to be. Cedric's rent was $2,150 a month, due every third. His apartment sat at the edge of San Jose, far from the shiny towers downtown. From his window, he could see the distant lights of Silicon Valley glowing at night. He used to work under those lights, inside rooms full of humming machines and quiet engineers. Now he mostly watched them, from a distance, choosing quiet mornings over ambition and noise. Cedric grabbed his worn canvas bag from the hook by the door. Inside sat his laptop, a battered notebook, and a small cracked photo frame of Chloe. He never left home without that photo. It rode in his bag every single day. That promise would soon become the hardest one Cedric ever had to keep. At 2:14 a.m. that same night, Cedric's old phone buzzed hard against the nightstand. He blinked awake instantly. A red alert filled the cracked screen. The message came from Etherisk Global Tech's central servers. It read, "Critical failure detected." Cedric's chest tightened. He knew that alert. He had built the system that sent it. Horizon Grid, the company's core financial network, was leaking memory by the second. Millions of ordinary accounts ran through that system. Retirement funds, grocery money, rent payments. If the leak kept spreading, the damage could reach $512,000 an hour. By the time markets opened at 9:30 a.m., The number could climb past $500 million. Cedric had never seen the counter move that fast before, not even during training drills. He would spend the rest of that night racing against a clock no one else could see. Cedric's hands went cold. He stared at Chloe's closed door down the hall. He had sworn never to leave her alone at night again, not after what happened to her mother. His jaw tightened. A vein pulsed once at his temple. He set the phone down. Other engineers could handle this, he told himself. Younger ones. Ones without sick children. Then his mind drifted back to the night his wife died. She had called him twice that evening, but he was buried deep in server logs. By the time he saw her missed calls, the police were already at his door. He never forgave himself for choosing work over her that single, ordinary night. Cedric had promised himself, standing at her funeral, that work would never come first again. Now, that same choice stood in front of him, wearing a different, more urgent face. This time, thousands of strangers depended on him, not just one person he loved. He almost believed it. Then he thought of his neighbors, people who trusted this system blindly. Mrs. Alvarez next door kept her whole pension inside Horizon Grid's network. If a system crashed, she would lose everything she had saved for 30 years. Cedric could not let that happen. Not to her. Not to anyone like her. He opened an old wooden drawer. Inside sat a small brass compass and a worn leather notebook. Both belonged to Arthur Vance, the man who founded Etheris and later retired quietly. Arthur was the only person who ever saw Cedric's true talent. He hired him personally years ago. At 2:45 a.m., Cedric dialed a number he rarely used anymore. Arthur picked up on the second ring. Cedric, Arthur said, his voice rough, with sleep but sharp as ever. Tell me what's wrong. Cedric explained the leak in quick, clipped sentences. Arthur listened without interrupting once. That system is still ours, Arthur said finally. Don't let the suits destroy what we built. Use the Vance override, Arthur added. I gave you that code for exactly this moment. You're the last real guardian that place is left, son. Go finish the job. Arthur's voice softened for just a moment. Your father would be proud, you know. Cedric closed his eyes briefly, letting the words settle deep in his chest. Cedric felt something settle in his chest. Fear was still there, but so was purpose. He carried Chloe, still half asleep, next door to Mrs. Alvarez's apartment. He pressed his last $50 bill into her hand. For milk, he whispered. Thank you. Mrs. Alvarez nodded and pulled Chloe gently inside. The door clicked shut softly. Cedric climbed into his old sedan. Fog rolled thick across the dark San Francisco streets. The engine coughed twice before catching. He gripped the wheel and pulled onto the highway. Streetlights blurred past his windshield like smeared paint. His mind raced through code in his head. At 3:30 a.m., Cedric walked into the empty lobby of Etheris Global Tech. Cold light bounced off the polished marble floor. His footsteps echoed through the silence. He swiped his old keycard. It beeped once, green, and the glass door slid open. The elevator rose fast, numbers climbing past 20, then 40, then 58. His ears popped slightly. He rolled his shoulders, trying to shake off the tiredness. Cedric stepped into the server room on the 58th floor. The air smelled like ozone and metal. Rows of black servers hummed steadily around him. Small red lights blinked like tired eyes. He sat down at his old terminal. His fingers found the keyboard without hesitation. Lines of code scrolled across his screen. Each one was a small piece of the fix. Somewhere close to 4:50 a.m., a flashlight beam swept across the server room. Marcus, the head of security, stood in the doorway. His loyalty belonged to Audrey Belmont alone. What are you doing in here at this hour? Marcus demanded, his voice sharp and suspicious. Before Cedric could answer, a young woman stepped out from behind a server rack. Lily Chun, a junior engineer, spoke quickly. He's helping me with an audit. I asked him. Lily had watched Cedric quietly fix problems for months, never once taking credit for it. She admired him more than anyone else on the entire engineering floor. Marcus narrowed his eyes, but said nothing more. He turned and walked back toward the elevator. He paused at the doorway, glancing back once more. "I'll be checking in again." His footsteps faded down the hallway, sharp and even against the polished floor. Lily exhaled shakily once he left. "Thank you," Cedric said quietly. "I owe you one." "Just fix it," Lily whispered. "I've seen the numbers. This is bad." Somewhere far above him, Audrey Belmont slept soundly in a penthouse across town. She had no idea a quiet man in old clothes was protecting her entire career. Cedric turned back to his screen. Over 4,000 lines of code still needed rewriting. Every few minutes, the system flagged another access warning. Audrey had tightened security weeks earlier. She had signed a new policy update in under 10 seconds without reading a single line. That careless signature now blocked half of Cedric's emergency commands from running properly. He had to route around her own rule, patiently, one block pathway at a time. Each rejected command cost him precious seconds. His heart pounded against his ribs. The air conditioning clicked on above him, humming steadily through the silent room. Somewhere down the hall, a cleaning cart squeaked across the tile floor, then faded away. Cedric barely noticed. His whole world had shrunk to lines of glowing green text. Lily brought him a paper cup of stale coffee around 6 in the morning. "You should sleep," she whispered, setting it down beside his keyboard. "Can't," Cedric said, eyes locked on the screen. "Not until this holds steady." He kept picturing Chloe's face, her small hand waving, as he left her behind. That image kept his fingers moving, steady and sure, through the longest hours of the night. By 8:15 a.m., the leak had finally stopped spreading. Cedric allowed himself one slow breath. But the system still needed a full reboot. It had to happen without breaking live transactions. One data partition refused to clear. It sat frozen, blocking the rest of the repair. Cedric leaned forward and began clearing it by hand, line by line, second by second. His shoulders ached from sitting still for so many hours without moving. The server fans roared louder now, straining under the weight of the repair. Sweat soaked through his shirt. His eyes burned red from hours without sleep. His fingers had gone stiff and cold, but he refused to stop typing. Somewhere below, a delivery truck rumbled past the building, rattling the windows faintly. Cedric barely noticed. Every ounce of focus stayed locked on the frozen partition. Line by line, the block finally began releasing its grip on the system. At 8:44 a.m., he typed the final command. The screen flashed green, patch complete. Relief hit him like a wave. His shoulders dropped. His head grew impossibly heavy. Cedric rested his forehead on the desk for just one moment. His hand stayed on the keyboard. Within seconds, exhaustion pulled him under completely. He did not hear the elevator doors open. At 8:50 a.m., sharp heels clicked hard against the marble floor outside the server room. Audrey Belmont walked in, leading a group of international partners from Summit Valley Trust. She saw Cedric slumped over his desk, asleep in his worn, faded clothes. Her face twisted with disgust. She did not glance at a screen even once. "Unbelievable," she snapped loudly. "Sleeping on company time, in front of our biggest partners." She turned to the visitors, her smile tight and humiliating. "This is what charity hiring gets you." Cedric jolted awake, confused and blinking. "Wait, please, just look at this security." Audrey barked, cutting him off completely. "Get him out of this building now." Two guards grabbed Cedric's arms. His old canvas bag hit the floor with a dull thud. A small picture frame slipped out, cracking against the tile. It showed Chloe's gap-toothed smile. Cedric reached for it, but a guard pulled him back hard. His fingers just missed it. Employees lined the hallway, whispering behind their hands as he was dragged toward the elevator. One young intern started to step forward, then stopped, afraid to speak up. An older engineer looked away, ashamed, staring hard at his own shoes instead. Someone snapped his keycard in half, right in front of everyone watching. The elevator doors closed on his stunned, silent face. Nobody said a word in his defense. His reflection stared back at him in the polished metal doors, tired and hollow. He thought of Chloe waving at him that morning, promising him a picture of dragons. Cedric stood in the cold lobby minutes later, clutching the cracked photo of his daughter. Wind off the bay cut through his thin jacket. He shivered, alone, completely powerless. A tall man in a dark suit approached him, holding a thin leather folder. "I'm with Etherius Legal," the man said flatly. "You'll want to listen carefully." He told Cedric that discussing company systems publicly would violate his signed confidentiality agreement. "Our firm represents a billion-dollar company," the man added. "Don't test us, Mr. Warren." Cedric's throat felt tight. He said nothing, just nodded and stepped back slowly. The lawyer walked away, without looking back, disappearing through the tower's revolving doors. Cedric had no lawyer of his own. No union. No one standing beside him. He had no way to know if his patch would even survive the coming reboot. Then, at 9:02 a.m., the employee elevator doors burst open. Lily Chin ran out, breathless. She pressed his confiscated phone and a small silver USB drive into his hands. "I copied the system log before they locked your account," she said, her voice shaking. "It shows your patch working perfectly at 8:45 a.m. This proves everything, Cedric." Cedric turned the small drive over in his palm, feeling its cold plastic edges. For the first time all morning, a plan started forming clearly in his mind. Hope flickered in his chest for the first time in hours. His fingers closed around the drive, but footsteps pounded behind her. Marcus and two guards came charging across the lobby. "Stop them!" Marcus shouted. "That drive contains confidential company data." "Run," Cedric told Lily. "Get somewhere safe. I'll handle this." Lily hesitated only a second, then sprinted toward the parking garage, disappearing around a corner. His lungs burned as cold morning air hit his face outside the tower. Cedric turned and ran the opposite way, out through the revolving front doors. He ducked into a small coffee shop directly across the street from the tower. The shop smelled of burnt espresso and warm cinnamon rolls cooling behind the counter. A barista frothed milk loudly nearby, steam hissing from the silver wand. Cedric slid into a corner booth, his back pressed against the cold window glass. Through the glass, he could see the Etherius Tower rising into the gray morning sky. His hands trembled as he opened his old laptop on a corner table. He connected to the shop's public Wi-Fi. His mind raced through old NASA network protocols. Somewhere inside Etherius, a hidden backdoor still linked to the boardroom's presentation system. Cedric had built that backdoor himself years earlier for emergency technical demonstrations. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Lines of command scrolled faster than he could read them. At 9:15 a.m., only 15 minutes remained before the trading markets opened worldwide. Inside the glass boardroom on the 58th floor, Audrey stood confidently before her guests. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows, catching the gold buttons on her tailored blazer. She clicked through slides showing rising profits and glowing customer satisfaction numbers. "Our systems are flawless," she told the Summit Valley Trust representatives, smiling brightly. "We run the tightest ship in Silicon Valley," she added, tapping the podium proudly. Harrison Fletcher, the company's chairman, sat quietly at the head of the long table. He said nothing yet, but his eyes stayed fixed on the wall screen behind her. The current chief technology officer pulled up a simulation on the massive wall screen. It showed what would have happened without any patch applied to Horizon Grid. Red warning symbols exploded across the display. Numbers spun wildly out of control. $500 million, someone gasped from the back of the room. Gone in 60 seconds. Audrey's face drained of color. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. At exactly 9:22 a.m., the screen flickered once, then changed on its own. A new window opened, showing a live system log instead of the simulation. It read clearly, "Vance override activated by Cedric Warren, 8:45 a.m. System stable, 100%. The room fell completely silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to hush itself. Harrison Fletcher slowly rose from his chair. His eyes locked onto the screen, unblinking. Then a second window opened beside the log, showing lobby security footage from that morning. Audrey had personally approved those cameras months earlier, proud of her tight control system. Now the footage played back clearly, showing her mocking Cedric in front of the guards. His cracked photo frame hit the floor again, this time on a screen for everyone. "Who is Cedric Warren?" A partner from Summit Valley Trust asked quietly. Audrey's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her throat felt suddenly closed and tight. "He's the man security dragged out of this building 20 minutes ago," Harrison said flatly. Gasps rippled through the boardroom. Several partners exchanged sharp, disbelieving glances. "You fired the engineer who saved this company," Harrison said, his voice low and cold. Audrey's hand shook. "I didn't know," she stammered. "He was asleep. He looked like a man who worked through the night to save your job," Harrison snapped. Down in the coffee shop, Cedric watched his laptop screen, unsure if the transmission worked. Then his phone buzzed. Lily's message appeared. It's on the big screen. They saw it. Relief crashed through him, so suddenly his hands shook against the table. Back in the boardroom, security guards appeared at Audrey's side, waiting for instructions. "Escort Ms. Belmont out of this building," Harrison said quietly. Effective immediately. Audrey's legs seemed to give slightly. A guard steadied her elbow as she stood. She looked around the room for support. No one met her eyes. The partners from Summit Valley Trust watched in stunned, uncomfortable silence as she was led out. Within the hour, news of the footage spread through every floor of the building. The board voted to remove Audrey completely, stripping her of stock options and severance pay. Summit Valley Trust withdrew their signature from the merger papers still sitting on the table. Her own legal team, the same one that threatened Cedric, quietly dropped her as a client. By afternoon, Audrey Belmont stood alone outside the tower, her assistant no longer answering calls. The same guards, who once obeyed her every word, now refused to meet her eyes. She hailed her own cab that day for the first time in many years. Harrison Fletcher turned to his assistant. "Find Cedric Warren. Bring him back here personally." Minutes later, a black car pulled up outside the coffee shop where Cedric sat. Harrison Fletcher himself stepped out, his expensive coat flapping in the cold bay wind. He walked straight up to Cedric's table and stood there for a long moment. "I owe you an apology," Harrison said simply. "A very serious one." Cedric looked up, exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed from the long night without sleep. "I just wanted the system safe," Cedric said quietly. "That's all I wanted. You saved this company $512,000 every single minute," Harrison said. "And we threw you out like garbage," he added, shaking his head slowly. "That will never happen again," Harrison said firmly. "Not while I'm chairman." Harrison extended his hand. "Come back inside. Let me make this right." Cedric stood slowly, his body aching from exhaustion. He shook Harrison's offered hand. They walked back across the street together, past the same doors that had shut on him. Employees in the lobby fell silent, watching Cedric walk in beside the company's chairman. Someone started clapping quietly. Others joined in, until the whole lobby echoed with applause. Lily stood near the elevators, tears streaming down her face as she watched him return. Harrison gathered the staff together in the main lobby within the hour. "This man built the system that protects every account this company manages," he announced. "This morning, he saved us from a $512 million collapse," Harrison continued. "He did it after being humiliated and thrown out by our former CEO." The lobby stayed silent, every eye fixed on Cedric standing quietly beside the chairman. "Effective today, Cedric Warren is our new Global Chief Technology Officer," Harrison announced. Applause broke out again, louder this time, filling the marble lobby with sound. Cedric barely heard the cheering. His mind had already drifted somewhere else entirely. Lily stepped forward, wiping her eyes. "I finally used to drive," she said, smiling weakly. "You saved us all," Cedric told her. "Not just me. Everyone in this building." Harrison overheard and nodded firmly. "Miss Chun, you'll be leading the infrastructure team now." Lily's mouth fell open in surprise. "Me? I'm only 26. "You showed courage tonight," Harrison said. "That matters more than years on a resume." Later, Cedric stepped into a quiet hallway and called Arthur Vance from his phone. "It held," Cedric said simply. "The system's stable. 100%. Arthur laughed softly on the other end, a warm, tired sound. "I never doubted you, son." "They made me CTO," Cedric added. "I still can't quite believe it myself." "Good," Arthur said. "Now go pick up that little girl of yours. She's waiting." "There's one condition," Harrison said, turning to face him directly. "Name your terms." Cedric thought for only a moment. "I need to leave by 4:30 every day." "My daughter comes first," he said firmly. "Always. That's not negotiable." Harrison nodded without hesitation. "Done. Take whatever office you want, with whatever hours you need." Later that afternoon, Cedric drove his old sedan to Chloe's small preschool. He arrived at exactly 4:58 in the afternoon, right on schedule. The afternoon sun broke through the fog, warm against his tired shoulders. Chloe spotted him through the fence and came running, her backpack bouncing behind her. "Daddy!" she shouted, crashing into his legs with her whole small body. Cedric knelt down and wrapped his arms around her tightly, breathing in her familiar smell. "I told you I'd be here," he whispered against her hair. "I always will be." Tears slipped down his rough cheeks, warm against the cold evening air. Chloe pulled back and studied his face. "Are you sad, Daddy?" Cedric laughed softly, wiping his eyes. "No, sweetheart. These are happy tears." That evening, they sat together at their small kitchen table, crayons scattered everywhere. Chloe drew a purple dragon with careful, wobbly lines across yellow construction paper. Cedric watched her small hand move steadily across the page, completely at peace. His new office would overlook the bay, with flexible hours built into his contract. The following Saturday, Cedric brought Chloe to see his new office for the first time. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the bay, gray water sparkling under thin sunlight. Chloe pressed her small hands against the glass, eyes wide with wonder. "This is all yours, Daddy?" she asked, spinning around the empty room. "Ours," Cedric said, smiling. "I share everything good with you." She found a spot near the window and declared it her official drawing corner. Cedric watched her happily arrange her crayons along the windowsill, humming to herself. He knew, right then, that every hard hour that night had been worth it. Later that week, Cedric knocked on Mrs. Alvarez's door and handed her an envelope. Inside sat $500, far more than the $50 he had borrowed that night. "You didn't need to do that," she said, though her eyes shone with gratitude. "You watched my whole world while I saved the company," Cedric said. "This is nothing." Word of Audrey's fall spread quickly through Silicon Valley's tight, gossiping business circles. No other firm would return her calls. Her name became a quiet warning to others. Mrs. Alvarez hugged him tightly at the door, patting his back twice. Cedric never once gloated about it. He simply kept showing up for his daughter. But none of that mattered as much as this moment, right here at this table. He thought about Arthur's words from the night before. "You're the last guardian left." Maybe that was true for the company. But Cedric knew his real job now. He was Chloe's guardian first, always, before anything else the world could offer him. Outside their window, the San Francisco fog rolled in slowly over the darkening hills. Inside, the kitchen light stayed warm and steady, holding back the cold evening air. Cedric picked up a green crayon and began drawing a dragon of his own. Chloe laughed at his crooked lines, and for the first time in years, so did he. The promise he made that morning had been kept fully and completely at last. Some men chase titles and corner offices their whole lives, never once looking back. Cedric had simply wanted to keep one small promise to his daughter. In the end, that quiet promise turned out to be worth more than any title. Home by 5, drawing dragons together, exactly as he told her he would be.